Welcome to Ignite the Spark Within, a podcast designed to do just that, ignite your spark within you. I'm your host, Sarah Malone, owner of Spark Fitness and Lifestyle Coaching and voted Yahoo Finance's top 10 female coaches to follow in 2021. I believe everyone has a fire inside them, a powerful purpose, a story waiting to be told, and everyone can uncover and unleash this power. Every day you have the choice to either let your experiences shape you or take control and use your experiences to shape the world around you. You were made to experience happiness, freedom, joy, purpose, love, passion, and abundance. Disrupt the status quo, think for yourself, and join forces with those around you doing the same. Join me for thought-provoking conversations along with the strategies needed in order to help you ignite your spark within. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we are talking about emotional regulation. And before I dive in, I want to explain why this topic is so important. There are two layers or levels to this really, and this is how we experience our relationship with ourselves and our ability to identify emotional regulation as it pertains to safety in and around others. Meaning, understanding this at a deep level will help you make wiser choices, more discerning choices when it comes to people and relationships and friendships, and how you will either proceed forward or not, or how you will navigate away from them once you've realized some of these things. Go into this episode with an open mind as to expand your awareness, both internally and to ask yourself, this podcast is all about challenging yourself and going to those hard places. Be able to go inside and really self-evaluate and self-reflect. It's called introspection. Be able to go inside and ask yourself these questions. If you have a level of emotional regulation that is allowing you to thrive in life, or what Dr. Wayne Dyer likes to call it, if it's immobilizing you, right? Nobody wants to be immobilized, but we'll go over in this episode how most of us are, and we're immobilized by our own lack of emotional regulation. So we're going to go through the ringer on this one. It's a really, really good topic. And I think more important than we may think. As at the very least, if we can come away from this episode with an understanding of how to more healthily, emotionally regulate ourselves, that is a win in and of itself. But at a basis of looking outwards on the world, then we can start to surround ourselves with people who are safe for us and who would keep us away from repeating cycles of trauma or reinducing traumas because of their own ability to emotionally regulate. So let's dive in. Let's start with the exact definition of emotional regulation. Emotional self-regulation, or emotion regulation, is the ability to respond to the ongoing demands of experience with a range of emotions in a manner that is socially tolerable and sufficiently flexible to permit spontaneous reactions, as well as the ability to delay spontaneous reactions as needed. Okay. In a nutshell, what that means is it's the ability to respond to life's happenings, feeling the feelings of the emotions that are coming up with that, and then having the ability to decide whether you're going to react in a spontaneous way. For example, and where this would be a good thing would be excitement, right? Surprise or love. So we have the ability to think in that moment, there is a stimuli happening. There is a situation, an external life situation happening. It is producing an emotion within me, and I will respond spontaneously without the need to hold this level of excitement or love or care, or amazement back. Okay. On the flip side of that would be the ability to delay spontaneous reactions as needed. Meaning, I experience a stimuli, I experience a circumstance where somebody says something that has the potential to make me angry, to ignite me. And they say it on purpose to ignite me and get me tangled in a web of confusion, chaos, and argument that will drain my energy, lead me to doing things that I don't want to do. And thus, I can, if I'm emotionally regulating, I can make that decision in that moment to delay my spontaneous reaction because that is what is needed. Instead of engaging in the angry dialogue because I know that they're just trying to ignite me, I choose to retreat and withdraw myself and my energy from the situation because I'm emotionally regulating. Okay, this is at a base level and also a deep level what emotional regulation is. Now, why each one is good and how we can get hung up. And so let's take if you are not, or if someone is not emotionally self-regulating, this can show up in two ways. So the first example where spontaneous reactions would be a good thing would be, like I said, moments of excitement, moments of love, moments of surprise, or, just, oh my gosh, I feel so grateful right now. I just have to tell you, I'm so grateful for you. A non-emotionally regulating person would withhold this and suppress it. And thus, we become immobilized because we are suppressing this due to other factors, and thus eliminating the ability to nurture and grow that relationship. Or we are, at the very least, eliminating our ability to feel something like spontaneity, or like excitement, or like exuberance, or like joy and passion and love. We are not emotionally regulating because we are not discerning when the proper moment is to erupt in these praises. And thus we are holding ourselves back from experiencing the utmost potential of joy in our lives. Now, on the flip side of that, well, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to understand how not being able to delay a spontaneous reaction due to anger or frustration or fear or sadness can lead to many, many detrimental and harmful and hurtful actions. This sends people down a road of either or both self-destruction and destruction of those around them. We've heard the phrase hurt people hurt people. And what this really means is someone who is not able to emotionally self-regulate will end up hurting people because of their inability to delay or at the very least suppress reactions where reactions aren't warranted. And so what we're really saying in all of this is self-control to an extent, right? It is having a proper perspective and ability to respond within the boundaries of healthy and valid responses without hurting others. Sometimes we go through experiences and the level of hurt and response seems to be almost illogically associated with the experience itself. Some people experience somebody cutting them off on when they're driving, and we have what's called road rage, and they respond in a way that is completely disproportional to the experience itself. And so this is what it really comes down to. Now, why this is helpful for all of us. Maybe you're saying to yourself, I'm not a person who, I don't pop off, I don't explode, I'm not a volcano, I don't have road rage, I don't abuse people in my life. Well, that's all fine and good. but maybe you're the one being abused. Maybe you're the one who's having road rage or relationships or people in your life that aren't emotionally self-regulating, and thus you are the target or the recipient of the negative behavior. Or you may be someone who simply can't emotionally regulate with themselves, meaning that these emotions now are controlling you instead of you controlling or at least using and directing your emotions, right? Emotions are directors. They are not the captains. They are the directors, and they will direct your ship to say, hey, go this way. Hey, go this way. Now, if we are not the captain, then we will be this way and that way and this way and that way, and we'll probably end up going in circles and not ever reaching our destination. But if we're using these emotions as what they are, which are directors, we will run them through a filter and a system to say, what is this emotion directing me to or away from? What is it trying to tell me? And what is it trying to teach me? And when we can filter it through that lens, no matter how long that process takes, sometimes the situation may call for you to do that in an instant. Sometimes there is a trauma that happens or an experience that happens that may require you to step back and really do a full in-depth processing and filtering system of this. And then really, we don't want to put a timetable on that. Because with some experiences, with some hurts, some things can come up, and we need to make sure that we remove our timetable and we allow ourselves to go through the proper filtering mechanism. Now, if this is the case, then all of these scenarios, this episode would be beneficial for you to hear, not only for you in choosing healthy people, but also to identify if there is an unhealthy dynamic, not to allow it to immobilize you too, not getting sucked into the current of disarray, not getting sucked under in the current of unhealthy relational behaviors, right? So the question becomes, with all of this, is do your emotions control you, or do you control your emotions? And just to keep this within the safe boundaries of projection, I will say, let's just keep this dialogue in the frame of mind that we're taking this lesson in for ourselves, right? This is a teaching moment. And then of course, if it fits the dialogue, if it fits your narrative to run this through the projective system of looking outwards at others and your experience with them, then do so. But let's just use this in a safe way to say, okay, this is a lesson for me. This is my practice of emotional regulation. So let's begin. So not that we've already haven't begun. We're already 10 minutes deep in this and we're already deep into the rambit. So the question becomes, do your emotions control you, or do you control your emotions? And there are some people, a lot of people who have the belief system that I can't control my emotions. I just get these feelings and then I can't control them. And I would like to challenge that. I would like to offer a differing viewpoint to you. And I would like to challenge you and to say, let's follow the lineage. Okay. So we have these things called feelings. This is great. They were given to us by God. Thank you, because they help us to live this human experience. Now, thoughts create feelings. Our thoughts create our feelings. And if we control our thoughts, not the fact that we control what thoughts come in, but we do control which thoughts to think. Meaning, sometimes we experience a spontaneous thought process that we find ourselves, where in the heck did that come from? And we find ourselves thinking those thoughts. There are two steps to thoughts. There is the thought that comes in, and then there is the thinker that thinks the thought. And this is this is another episode for an entirely different podcast. But there's a challenging question that comes into play here is, well, who is thinking the thought then? Am I thinking the thought, or is the thought thinking me? Where did the thought come from? And if the thought didn't come from me, then where is it coming from? And who is me? Follow that one. So if we control our thoughts, meaning that we control what we choose to think about when a thought comes in, this must mean that we control our feelings. If a thought generates a feeling and we control our thoughts, then we can control our feelings simply by changing our thoughts. Now, my main mentor and my favorite, all-time favorite, Dr. Wayne Dyer, has a book called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. I highly recommend it to anyone and everyone. It is literally the book that kind of provoked me on a path of him. But he also has a book called The Erroneous Zones. And there's some more in-depth material in there about the concept of immobilization, which is what we're talking about today, and how our emotions can immobilize us. And they do so all the time without us even realizing it. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the show. Hey, I'm going to make this really quick. On October 20th through the 23rd, if you are a woman, or even if you are a man who knows a woman, any woman that would benefit from this experience, I'm hosting a retreat with my dear friend Kim Egger in Arizona in the beautiful and spiritual Red Rocks of Sedona. We are very excited to bring this retreat. I've been hard at work at creating the content for this retreat for the past 2 years, ever since the pandemic hit. And what I realize is that these women, all people really, but right now we're focused on the healing of the divine feminine. And this is really just going to provide a space for growth, for healing, for rest and reprieve, as that is desperately what we need right now. And the contents and the guidance of somebody facilitating an actual growth experience instead of leaving you out in the cold. If traditional therapy doesn't appeal to you, which it doesn't appeal to most, then this is a great way to experience the healing and transformational experience that something like that can offer you, but in a place where it's completely away from your normal routine, family, friends, and environment. It is a chance to connect with other women that are like-minded and on the same pursuit as you. And we're just going to spend 3 nights together in the beautiful Red Rocks of Arizona, healing, growing, doing the work, meditating, doing breath work, and exploring nature. So if this calls to you, if this appeals to you, we have limited spots available for this retreat, and we're just so excited to bring it to you. So you can email me at sarah@sparkflc.com, or at any of the links in my social media bios. You'll find a link there to book a connection call with me, just to make sure that this retreat truly is for you. I also wanted to make an announcement of our sponsors of the show and just thank them. First sponsor is Spark Fitness and Lifestyle Coaching, my baby. This is a holistic health and wellness company that has expanded over the years to include things like Reiki and energy healing, guided and channeled meditations. We do activations of spiritual gifts. We also offer live in-person events for women only and for men and women, like the yoga and sound bowl healing sessions and the full moon women's gathering. There is so much to offer in this one space: fitness, nutrition, holistic healing, you name it, and it's going to be covered under mind, body, and spirit with Spark. And I'm very honored to partner with other partners and investors now to be able to sponsor this show. Our next sponsor, Juice Plus. I've said it and I've said it ad nauseum now that I am not a huge supplement fan, but Juice Plus captured my attention with its ability to bring an immunity aspect to me and help me to function at a higher level, which I was shocked to find out that we are recommended to consume 9 to 16 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And I don't know about you, but that's a lot of food to consume. And with our busy lifestyles, which I'm not condoning, by the way, it can be hard to consume that much food. So what's cool about Juice Plus is that all of this is holistic. It is legitimately powdered fruits and vegetables in a capsule, so you don't have to drink a nasty fruits and greens powder. They also come in gummies if you're not a pill swallower. I don't mind it, so I do the reds, the greens, and the purples, and their fish oil, their omega blend. And I have to say, aside from just taking care of my health, which sometimes can be unseen and unfelt, I legitimately feel a difference in my ability to recover, in my health and vitality and energy. And it's almost like a space is created in your system and you just feel like things are more oxygenated, which, come to learn, that's its sole purpose, to oxygenate your system. So as an athlete and as a workhorse, even if you don't work out strenuously, even if you just live a lifestyle in which you're working a lot, you're creating what's called oxidative stress in your system. And oxidative stress can be very detrimental. It's what reduces your immunity. It's what causes inflammation. It's what harms recovery and muscle building, among other things. So Juice Plus has been a huge crutch and an important aspect in my own journey, not just athletic endeavors, but health as well. So if you need any more information on those, please hit the links in the show notes. They'll take you directly to Spark, the retreat page, and then Juice Plus. And hey, if this podcast is adding value to your life in any way, I just want to ask, there is a donate button. You can donate whatever, however little or as much as you want. It does not have to be recurring, but just as a thank you for, continuing to provide valuable content on this page, it really helps to keep this podcast going and just supports good quality information. You can find that link in the show notes as well. It's what began this show in the first place, and everything is welcome. At the end of the day, my mission is just to continue bringing you high quality, good conversations, a place to come to learn and hear vulnerability, and then so that you become a stronger and more capable human being as well. So anything is much appreciated to help continue this show. And before you get bored and start skipping, let's get back to the show. So let's talk about, in order to take this journey, we first need to decide and discover if in fact our emotions are immobilizing us, and if we need to do a better job of emotionally self-regulating. So I'm going to take some signs from Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, Erroneous Zones, and I've also added my own. Some signs that your emotions may be immobilizing you would be: you lose your temper because there is anger built up inside of you. Okay, let's be real. How many people that do this, or how many people do this? You delay or purposefully say no to things you genuinely want out of spite for something or someone that happened. You can't speak your truth with love. You can't focus on projects that interest you. You sit around the house and brood about the same situation. You avoid talking to someone when you realize a simple gesture would improve your relationship. You can't sleep because something is bothering you. Your anger keeps you from thinking clearly. You say something abusive to someone that you love. You allow your fear to hold you back from taking action. and you make decisions based on your momentary moments of feelings that are contradictory to your identity and direction in life. Now, obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. There are countless more ways and signs that you can see either that you are being immobilized by your emotions or that others are being immobilized. And what we really mean by immobilized is really it's just preventing you from living into the highest version of yourself, which we are all called to be. And so these are ways in which we can see either ourselves or others are not properly emotionally self-regulating. Someone who is emotionally self-regulating, they speak their truth with love. They speak out what's making them angry or upset in a way that is productive, not only for them, but for the other party listening. See, communication is a two-way street. And if I'm communicating my anger in a way that makes me feel good and say, screaming, 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 I've explained this to you so much. Why don't you get it? Well, it's possible that the other party either can't hear you, they don't have the capability to hear you without getting defensive, or you're just explaining it in a way that's not making sense to them, and thus they don't understand it. They hear you, they know what you said, but understanding is a layer that is a bit deeper. Okay, so or that parent or that spouse that erupts and they can't speak to their family members with love. They speak out of frustration or resentment. These are all ways of these are all signs that your emotions have you and not the other way around. Now, on that note, let's further the discussion on what emotions purpose is, which are directors. Like I said, all emotions have a place. In the masculine dynamic and in the male culture, I won't even say masculine because I will just say male. In the male culture, it seems as though men have been brought up to be taught that sadness is bad. Don't show sadness because that means you're weak. Or don't show, don't talk about your hurt feelings. Don't have any feeling. Anger is okay because anger drives a level of force that can be productive for certain seasons for certain men. But suppressing emotions is also not good. So we're not talking about suppressing emotions here. That's not at all what we're talking about. We're talking about regulating your emotions in a way that puts you in a position looking inward that is going towards your emotions in a discovery type of way. It's going inside and getting curious about what your emotions are trying to say to you. And then once you've figured that out, taking the proper action towards that. Or maybe no action needs to be taken. So let's just go over anger. What is an emotion like anger trying to tell you? Well, it could be telling you a lot of things, but here are some examples. Telling you are being treated in a way that is inconsistent with your values and how you would like to be treated, or you are not creating clear boundaries, could cause anger to come up, or you're simply acting self-righteous and you're becoming angry because you're not getting your way, or there is a level of forgiveness to be had and you are not addressing this, and thus you are continuing a pattern of anger in general, or you didn't speak your truth. Now, this could lead to a secondary emotion under anger, which is worse and much harder to come back from, which is resentment. Once resentment comes into play, it is no longer the person who's on the other side of the anger's responsibility. It is the person who is holding the anger. See, resentment is only possible when one person fails to do or to own their own truth. Resentment is the responsibility of the person who is doing the resenting. Anger could also be signaling an unhealthy dynamic within or with someone else. If you are, for example, one of my rule of thumbs for myself is to always trust the first emotion. And so what I've begun doing, just based out of experience, my own life experience, and also just coaching thousands of people, is trust your first emotion. Trust that first emotion that comes up. That doesn't mean act on it. But it does mean trust it, because that is usually the one that you're not controlling. It's the one that your thoughts are not in charge of. It's the one that is the biggest signal to you saying, hey, this emotion just came up within me. Why? What was that? What just happened there that induced that feeling in me, and discover that? Anger could also mean you are not facing something you should, or going after your calling. Examples of that would be that person who has been feeling called into a certain career path for quite some time, and they're currently in a career path that is not suited for them or is not making them happy, and thus they become angry because they're not pursuing what they should be pursuing. So this anger itself is not something to be shoved away and just say, deal with it. Don't be so angry. Don't be such an angry person. There's a level of compassion we need to have with these emotions to say, why am I so angry? Where is the anger coming from? And we'll go through the steps on how to do this after these. Another emotion that we try to simply suppress or push through: anxiety. Anxiety is high right now in the world around us with all this uncertainty. Anxiety is probably one of the biggest emotions right now that is distracting a lot of us. And that's really what it is. It's a distractor. But anxiety is also a signal for other things too. Anxiety is usually, these are the two most common themes that I've found anxiety is a signal of. And it is usually telling you to take action on something that you are not doing. And so it's this weird thing, and I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with many, many clients. As soon as an idea or the knowing of something comes into your mind that you should be doing, or you should be making a decision or taking an action, and you don't do it, anxiety sets in. And this is like literally because there is a conflict, an internal conflict. It's an internal state of dis-ease and discomfort because your soul says, go right, and you just keep going left. And so this feeling of anxiety is like a clashing of the gears, and it will cause you to have knots in your stomach. You'll be fidgety and anxious and distracted and all of these things. Or you are, this is a good rule of thumb. Anxiety comes from focusing too much on the future, and sadness or depression comes from focusing on the past. So this is the regretful thinking. Fear and anxiety are future thinking, and sadness and depression are past regretful thinking. And the key to all of this, of course, is coming back to the present, because that's the only moment that we really have. Excuse me. I'm glad we're so intimate on my podcast that you allow me to drink coffee. And even if you didn't allow me, I'd still do it anyway. So anxiety also could be telling you need to organize and clear your path so you can take more focused action. Case in point, if you are all over the place, you can't, and this would be, a lot of people would use the excuse of, well, I have ADD, I have ADHD, I have attention deficit disorder, and I need my meds, I need my Adderall, and I need my things to focus. And sometimes it's just that you're doing too much. Or sometimes it's that, that other level of anxiety when you should be taking action on something and you're filling your plate with all these task doing things in order to feel productive without doing the hard work of channeling that creative energy into what you should be doing. At the end of the day, this anxiety is coming from acting incongruent with yourself. And nobody ever feels good when they're being incongruent with themselves. It's that person who says they want to be a good person and they end up swearing at people and just lashing out. That is another signal of anger, but it also causes them to be highly anxious, highly anxious, because they almost can't anticipate their own responses. And uncertainty will cause anxiety. Any form of uncertainty of the future or of what to expect will cause a level of anxiety. And sometimes these feelings, these patterns and habits of feelings get set in stone when we're young. Taking a child who was born in a chaotic home that they never knew what to expect. When was the next, uproar going to happen? When was mom going to say, okay, we're out of here? When are we going to get a divorce? And all of these things can set into motion a foundation of anxiety within the child. But once we get into adulthood, now it's our responsibility to get to know that anxiety and then understand that life can be certain when we are certain. Right? That's the way through that anxiety from that childhood trauma, is coming into adulthood and taking responsibility for it and saying, that anxiety happened and became a habit and a pattern when I was in this situation. I'm no longer in that situation. So now I can change my habit of thinking and feeling. I can go on a whole nother tangent of anxiety, but for the purposes of this podcast, I will refrain. Sadness, another emotion that has a very, very important role. Sadness is such a gift. I know this sounds crazy, but sadness is really at the heart of the human experience. If we didn't have anything to be sad over, it means that we didn't have anything to miss, or we never had anything good. Sadness usually comes from a sense of loss, and you'd have to have something first in order to lose it. And so grief is a part of life for everyone in some way, shape, or form. We could lose a person, we could lose a pet, we could lose a job, we could lose a home, we could lose a part of ourselves, even though that's really not possible. Because again, there is always a part of our soul that is completely undamageable, and you are never separate from it. It's the perception of separateness that makes us feel sad. When we can understand that we are never separate from ourself or from our source, and because we are all created from the same source, we are never separate from each other. We are all one. But this sadness, it's showing you what is important to you. If you become sad over something, even if it's, for me, I'm a very, very sensitive person. I know many of you who listen to my podcast are close followers of me, and I love you, by the way. But you've probably figured out by now that I'm a highly sensitive individual. I feel things very deeply. I love very deeply. I have an obsession with people and animals too. And look at how sensitive I'm crying just talking about this. And I feel I care about people and things so much. And so I could simply watch an animal video or a people video and cry tears of joy, or, be sad over a situation that I'm not even connected to. And a lot of people, most people are like this. If you have a highly heart-driven life. And so this is simply showing you, at the very least, it is showing you more of yourself. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful experience, is to be seen and to to have this level and this emotion called sadness show you who you are, and it's something to be beautiful, and recognized about yourself, and almost appreciated in a way, to say, man, I am such a warm-hearted person, and you could take it that way. It also helps you to savor those moments of joy. If we didn't have sadness, how good would joy feel? It's the same way we are able to enjoy rest when we've worked hard. It's that dichotomy of in this dichotomy, it goes into emotions as well. It's all the ranges of emotions, which there are a list of emotions, and I'm going to include those in the show notes. There are a list of core emotions. I believe this was developed by Brene Brown. There is a list of our core emotions, but we can't look at that as the exhaustive list, because there is then a spectrum of emotions on each of those emotions that can vary too. So all of our emotions on this ever, large and long encompassing range, and spectrum, are important, and their dichotomies of one another. And every single one of them has a purpose and a place. And they're all signals really pointing us back where? Within. All of our emotions are signals of what is happening within. And so if we are emotionally self-regulating, and if we're in general an emotionally self-regulating person, we would go through the process of asking ourselves, the following questions, and you can write these down if that would be beneficial to you. Is go inward and ask yourself if your response is warranted given the situation. Is it proportional? The example of the road rage person. Or you just had a breakup and you are just like ready to, thinking very, very dark and bad thoughts. Is that proportional to what's happening right now? Is that really what's going on? Are those thoughts really coming up to the center because of the breakup, or is there something else happening here? Now, my answer to you is there's something else happening here, because no level of breakup would ever lead somebody to who's healthily, emotionally self-regulating, lead them down that trajectory. Another question: is the response outweighing the enormity of the circumstance? So again, very similar to the first question, is my response way too large given this circumstance? So if any of your answers to those questions are, directed towards it is an overreaction, then your emotions have you instead of the other way around. One tool I will provide is the work of Byron Katie. It is literally called The Work, and she has a 4-step process. It's beautiful, because it really helps you to get above what's happening and really get to the bottom of it. And I always like to phrase things this way, because the first answer usually is only the first layer of the onion, and there are many, many more layers. And so if the question is, why am I feeling this way? Well, because such and such hurt me. No, why am I really feeling this way? And this helps us get to the layer that's underneath, and the layer that is also outside of the experience itself. See, there is no one experience that happens to us that makes us feel a certain way. All experiences, all situations are neutral until we assign a positive or negative definition to them. There are no problems. There are no problems. We live in a problem-free world. Problems are creations of our own mind when something happens and we say, this is a problem. Problem for who? For you? I know that's hard to understand. And now there are those people out there that will go to the extreme sense of, well, what about murder? And what about rape? Those are problems. And we're not going into that topic of philosophy and somewhat stoicism in some ways. But we're talking about your individual ecosystem. Okay. I've been raped. That was not a problem. It was an experience that I had. It taught me a lot. Was it preferential? Not really. But then again, I can't even say that that's the case because it has definitely shaped me as a woman. And I've chosen to allow that experience to shape me in a way that is furthering my soul's course on towards its destiny rather than the other way around. Okay. So asking the question, why am I really feeling this way, will help you get to the bottom of it. You know, if so-and-so treats you a certain way and it makes you angry, why am I feeling angry? Because so-and-so said this. Why are you really feeling angry? Well, because I gave them everything and it wasn't good enough for them. So it's the feeling of feeling not good enough that is making you angry. Not that they didn't follow your expectations, but it's the feeling of feeling not good enough. Okay, now we're on an entirely different path because going down that road of solving the problem of not feeling good enough, that is a self journey. There is no human on the face of this planet that can make someone not feel good enough. That is a self choice. There is also no person on the face of this planet that can make you not feel worthy or you not feel good enough. That is a decision that you make based on someone else's response that you are, by the way, not in control of. This is where emotional regulation really comes in important, is because we've got to keep this in perspective. If somebody does something and we fall into the trap of saying, so-and-so did this and made me feel this way. We are giving that person too much power. Well, we are giving anything outside of ourselves too much power when we say that such and such made us feel a certain way. That is too much power to give away. You can reclaim your power by saying, this experience happened to me, such so-and-so said this, and it provoked this emotion inside of me. Why am I responding this way? What is going on here? And when we take that journey, this is a different level of work now that we're talking. So this different level of work, it comes down to getting to the bottom of our emotions and having self-control. Because if I'm not able to do this work with myself, or if someone is not able to do this work with themselves, then they will live their lives in a way that says, so-and-so acted this way and it made me angry. F them. I'm going to do these actions. I'm going to show them. I'm going to respond out of my anger. And that's as far as I'm going to go. And that's not even a response, that's a reaction. I am now putting myself in a position to be victim to my initial feelings without going to the next level. And you know what happens with that? Is a lot of negative emotions begin piling on top of each other in your energetic system, causing block after block after block after block, and layer after layer after layer after layer of filthy emotions that need to be sifted through. And now, when we've done years and years and years of that, anything that looks remotely similar to what somebody else has done in the past that initiated that feeling of anger, it's now that's the same thing. And this now we're looking at it through that identical lens, and we're assigning someone as something that they shouldn't be, just because we felt the feeling of anger based on a circumstance that looked similar to another one. Oh, I'm going to say that again. Now we are assigning someone as something that they are not, simply based on the fact that that same emotion of anger came up in a circumstance that looked similar but was not. That is powerful. Powerful and huge, because what this trajectory leads us down is a path of recycled patterns and behaviors. Simply because we did not stop long enough to get curious about the emotion. And instead, we projected this, we reacted on the anger. We said, you made me angry. Now I'm going to react this way. I'm going to push you away. I'm going to treat you like dirt. I'm going to do whatever that looks like in that moment. I'm going to say things that I don't actually mean. And first of all, that hurts you, the person with the anger. But second of all, that hurts the other person that it's happening to, because they didn't even get the opportunity to understand what is going on here. I'm getting this layer and level of hurt put on me based on an experience that this person is running through their filter that's making them angry. And now I'm a villain. This is causing dis-ease in the dynamic, and it will lead to that person going further away. All the other person sees is that person going further away from their anger. And this makes the anger more, and the pattern continues. Okay, this is important. This is important not only for the angry person, this is important for the person who's on the receiving end of the anger. If the person on the receiving end can maturely identify what is going on, then they have two options. They can communicate what is happening, their own level of hurt, in an emotionally regulated way, might I say. And then they can make the decision whether they want to continue in that space of with a level of unsafety or not. This is why it's important to know. This is why it's important to know what's going on. Because if you can identify that in someone else, and hopefully you can identify that before you get into a situation where you are the recipient of it, and you can simply do this by observing their reactions and their responses and their history with other people. Ask them questions. You know, when you're making new friends, do they have a lot of fallouts? Do they have a lot of people that, have ended up hating them in the past? Or is this a cycle? When we're talking about relationships, it's all of these things you need to identify based on history. History has a tendency to repeat itself unless there is something different being presented. And change usually takes at least 6 months of consistency to be considered change in the first place. So we've gone down, and I think I've done a good job, at least, of of demonstrating this pattern and the reason that this is important. So let's go to the positive side, and let's talk about ways of dealing with and integrating all of these emotions. So before I do that, let's just identify the ways in which you can do this for yourself, and then identify the ways in which you can do this to decipher your relationships with other people. First of all, take inventory. Take inventory of yourself. Are you following any of those symptoms of immobilization, of emotional immobilization? If so, time to reevaluate and time to get curious about the emotions that are coming up. You're chronically anxious. What are you anxious about? Where do your thoughts typically go when you're feeling feelings of anxiety? And choose to change those. Put in some practices of stillness and present thinking. Meditation is the best thing I could have ever introduced. It's my one life-changing tip for anyone. And meditation does not have to be a Zen, sitting there for 30 minutes to 45 minutes of emptying yourself of all thoughts. Meditation looks so different for all people. I made a YouTube video on meditation. So if this is something you're interested in, go check that out. It's about 8 minutes long. I won't take your time on this episode to describe that, but if you're constantly feeling anxiety, then it's time to introduce some stillness into your life, and some moments where you're practicing getting yourself in the present moment, getting yourself in your body. So becoming aware, taking inventory, seeing where you are on this spectrum. And then when it comes to other people, just be a student. It's almost like you're, especially in those initial phases, you're interviewing people to make sure that they're a safe receptacle for you, that this is a safe space for you to coexist with. It's a safe space for you to open yourself. It's a safe space for you to make mistakes, because people who are not emotionally self-regulating, they feel like they're walking on eggshells, or they feel that this person won't be able to be responsible for their feelings because they have difficulty being responsible for their own. And so just ask questions, ask questions about how they deal with certain things. You can find out a lot about somebody by the way that they talk about past relationships or past friendships. And if there's a level of disdain or unforgiveness or projection as if they are the victim in every single one of their situations, that is a signal that this person is not emotionally self-regulating. And this is not a safe space for you. And if this is also a case where you're already in the situation, and when you bring up your feelings, it ignites unwarranted feelings of anxiety or fear by simply you speaking your truth, this is another sign of a lack of emotional self-regulation, because their response to you when you bring your truth into the picture is showing you their ability to do it with themselves. And what I mean by that is, if you bring up a truth and it's perceived as, or something happened in your relationship or your friendship that it hurt your feelings, and you're bringing that up to someone who is not emotionally self-regulating, the response is going to show you how they process their own feelings. If there are feelings of anxiety and pushing it away and getting past it as quickly as possible, they are showing you how they deal with their own emotions. They're showing you that when their emotions come up, their action plan is to get through it as fast as possible and get out of the discomfort. And this is a signal that this is not a safe place. Okay. Tips for dealing with and integrating all of the emotions. I have 5 steps here. If you want to write these down, go ahead and do so. But tip number 1, welcome all emotions and get curious about them. I already said it, but this is the first step. You must come to the table in a state of curiosity and almost childlike curiosity in a student mentality way. You must be a student of yourself. You must be a student of life. You must be a student of these emotions and look at them as little puzzle pieces that are filling out the picture of you. And they're also puzzle pieces of filling out the picture of the world in which you are perceiving. Okay, this is very, very important. Step 1, welcome all emotions, get curious, ask those deeper questions. Number 2, stop. Don't act. Don't react. Stop doing. You know, my dad is one of my biggest mentors that I can talk to face to face. And, you know, he always used to tell me, you know, never make a decision in the heat of the moment. And I love this. I mean, and I live this, and I really, really take it to heart because I grew up in a home where there were a lot of incorrect decisions and actually not decisions being made in the heat of a moment. And this brought a level of uncertainty into everybody's lives that were involved that made me never want to speak out of anger in the heat of any moment or make any decision in the heat of the moment. And people who do this are unsafe people. And so the step number 2 is to stop. Do not act, because those feelings, they are very tricky. They can really, really throw you through a spiral and send you off track quickly if you allow them to. So stop. Don't act. Remove yourself if possible. If not, do your best to keep your cool and then remove yourself as soon as possible. Number 3, talk it out or write it out. Stories can cycle in our head and they become monsters, right? So these stories, without talking them or writing them out, can manifest into something that becomes actually not true. And so getting this out in order to help you process it and understand, again, step 1 was getting curious, but it helps you to understand that curiosity and helps you get to that layer that is underneath. Number 4, after you've written it out, after you've talked it out, after you've at least regurgitated the experience along with your feelings and everything that happened, if there hasn't been some clarity that came with this already, well, I'd be surprised if there wasn't. But step 4 is ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And why am I really feeling this way? Step 4 would probably be your longest step because this is going to take some processing and some uncovering and some going deep and sometimes going back to understand, really, really understand why it is you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And then step number 5 is turn it around and create a healthy action. So turning around doesn't mean that you get rid of the emotion or you say, okay, how can I not be angry? Okay, I'm not gonna be angry. I'm gonna be happy instead. This is not what I mean. This is turning it around means creating something good out of it. It means if my experience of hurt from a broken relationship was causing me deep depression or sadness, then I can go through these steps and say, okay, sadness, bring it on. What is it? Why am I so sad? What are you trying to teach me? I'm going to stop in this moment. I'm not going to react in my sadness and go crawling back to the person because I'm so sad that they need to make me feel better. I'm going to do step 2 and I'm going to stop. I'm going to do not act. I'm going to talk it out with a confidant, friend, or mentor, or write it out and get the story out of my head. Here's what happened. The relationship broke down, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sad. I'm so this, I'm so that. Okay, why am I feeling this way? Well, I'm so sad because I thought the relationship was going to work out and blah, 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 blah. No, why am I really feeling this way? Well, because I put my trust into someone that I learned later, wasn't trustworthy, or, I didn't expect this, or whatever that may be. Number 5 would be turn it around to say, okay, good. Yes, you put your trust into someone. That's a good thing. You opened yourself up. You opened yourself up and you were vulnerable and you were raw and you gave of yourself. That's good. But maybe there was a level of discernment there that, needed to be there in place so that you didn't get hurt in this way. Okay, create a healthy action. So it's not that I'm going to never trust again. I'm not just going to respond and say, oh, all men are awful and I can never trust and men can't be trusted. This would be me forming an inaccurate belief based on one experience. Instead of saying, all right, good. So I have the capacity and I obviously desire to have a relationship or a love or whatever. And but I just need to maybe put things through a better form of filters and do a better job of discerning and do things a little bit differently. This is a piece of my puzzle. Here's my healthy action, puzzle piece inserted on my puzzle. This would be the way to go through this process. It doesn't mean that the whatever dissipates, but you may actually find when you turn it around and then you figure out what it was actually there for you for, what this experience was there for you for, it does dissipate the sadness. It turns it into hope. It turns it into gratitude for the opportunity to have this lesson. And it also turns it into appreciation or compassion for yourself and also the other person. To say, oh gosh, I'm not a victim of whatever circumstance this was, and this person isn't horrible. This just is what it was. At an objective view, this is what happened. It produced this, and now I'm going to do this differently. There we go. Now, one important distinguish to be made here is self-regulating and then relying on others to be your emotional regulator. And the balance I like to say here is, I would say the balance between being able to go inside and do this, self-reflecting and introspection and self-analyzing should be about 70% and maybe 30% relying on others, because we really do need that outside voice sometimes to be the voice of objectivity rather than emotional voice. That's why friends are so important. That is why, trusted people or, family members or even a therapist or whomever the relationship is with. This is why people are so important, is because they provide for us, hopefully, if they're also emotionally self-regulated and not trying to attach themselves to your experience. They are providing for you an objective point of view that is not attached to your emotions. So they can help be the neutral barrier, the neutralizer to the heightened emotions, and really help you to regulate that and help you to go through this process. Number 3 could be just that. It could be talking it out with somebody. And as you're saying it out loud to them, and having them kind of use phrases of instigation instead of phrases of direction. And what I mean by that is that they instigate new thoughts. They don't direct you in any which way. They simply ask questions and produce altering ideas or perspectives to help you see it a different way. That this is so healthy, and this is something that's definitely needed in your process. But it has to be somebody that you trust is not going to simply feed you what you want to hear, or add fuel to the negative driving emotions. This will steer you in a direction that may not be right for you, or it will simply enhance your level of unproductive emotions, and neither which is good. So having this balance of being able to create and build a level of trust with yourself to be able to go inward and unpack these emotions. There's a level of safety that you need to develop with yourself in order to do that. And that only comes with practice. It comes with practice. And the second part of that is then acting on that. And so if you go through this process and you realize, I am in a situation that is not good for me, if you have decided that and you stay there, you are now showing yourself that you're not the safe filter. And you will either avoid that in the future, or you will become emotionally dysregulated. Not to mention staying in the situation far longer than you should be because you failed to be there for yourself. So this comes with action, and it can be small at first. I recommend starting small. If you're not just gonna, go uproot all your relationships that you find aren't healthy for you anymore. I mean, that could be damaging in and of itself. You would start small. You would put these through the process, and then take the action and show yourself that you're showing up for yourself and that you're building this confidence. Building this level of trust with yourself is so important because it will allow you to continue this process until it becomes who you are. And then you are your source of biggest safety. You are your biggest source of certainty. You are your biggest source of love. You are your biggest source of companionship and peace and joy. Okay. And then we rely on others to help us in those sticky moments when the emotions seem too high, where we need help putting them in the right compartments and understanding them. This is such an important topic, not only for how we're developing ourselves and our own happiness and peace, but how we're developing ourselves in a world where we're connected to others as well. And so that we're not continuing the cycle of hurt. We're not passing along hurt for hurt. We're trying to heal the world. We're not trying to hurt it more. And then it's also important for you ensuring your own safety with the people that you choose to surround yourself with. And making sure, you're running these through the systems too. We can use this process for positive emotions as well. I'm feeling euphoric. Wow, why am I feeling so euphoric right now? Okay, hold on. I'm not going to get caught up in the moment. I'm not going to act. Step 2, stop. Don't act in the moment. Talk it out. Okay, oh my gosh. I met this guy and I'm feeling all of these feelings and it's all up here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, ask yourself, why are you feeling this way? Well, because I met this guy. No. Why are you really feeling this way? Well, because I've been looking for a partner for so long and I've been so lonely. And okay, well, if that is your reason that you're so happy because you've been so lonely and now you met this guy and he's giving you attention, evaluate that. Is that a healthy place to go? Because if he's just there making you feel happy because you were lonely, what happens when you're not lonely? What happens when that initial euphoria fades? But if the answer to that question is because I have fun with him, I trust him, I feel safe with him, I can be myself, all of these list of because I grow when I'm around him and I help him grow. This is beautiful. This is beautiful because he makes me a better person, because he believes in me and he helps me bring a level of passion to what I'm doing. And I see that I do the same thing for him. And, he allows, oh my gosh, we could go on and on. Then yeah, take that action, feel the euphoria, get in that moment and enjoy it. Okay, so we can use this process for positive. And I dislike saying positive or negative because, as we just discussed, all emotions and all things are neutral until assigned otherwise from us, yours truly. But we can use this for any range of the emotions, anything. So I hope this episode brought you value and it was useful in multiple ways. And of course, I always ask you guys this. Here's the thing. This is not for my ego. This is nothing for more than, the algorithm likes the following things: shares, likes, and subscribes. That's it. It's an algorithm that I'm not a fan of, but it is in place. And that's just the way it is. So if this brought you value, guys, please share it with others. Tag me on social media if you do share it, please. Subscribe, rate it, please. This just helps pump it up in the feed, if nothing else. It's not a money thing. It doesn't actually produce any money just by a simple like or a subscribe or a share. But it just pumps it up in the feed and brings it to a level of awareness that it wasn't before, so that more people can get good quality and valuable information. And hopefully, I'm doing that by producing these episodes. And if there is a topic that you would like me to dive into or research, then please send it to me. Any of my social media channels is the best way to get a hold of me. You can also email me at sarah@sparkflc. I love doing this stuff with you guys. As always, be well. I love you, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Ignite the Spark Within. If this podcast brought you value, or you think it would bring someone else value, please hit that share button. My mission is to reach and help as many people as I possibly can, and you just never know who could use that one good piece of information. And hey, if you have any topics, discussion questions, or ideas for future episodes, you can reach me directly at sarah@sparkflc.com and just write podcast in the subject line. And if you haven't already, please rate the podcast on your favorite podcast channel. This helps bring awareness to the show. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're alerted for all future episodes. Please go ahead and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're interested in pursuing coaching for yourself, you can visit sparkflc.com for more information.